used to think I knew pretty much everything about health. I actually worked in fitness for a while, and I used to tell people what to eat and how to move. But I was missing something huge. You see, we are wired to connect with each other. And the true foundation of human well-being is social connection. This is what I spend my time on today as a professor of public health. But in a life very different than the one I live right now, I was a Marine Corps military police officer. My little brother was as well, and we were very, very close, probably because when we were young, we moved over 10 different times, and every other summer we were the new kids and each other's only friends. So on my first deployment to Iraq, I got an email from him that I was excited to receive, and he said, "Kate, I've met a girl." And I said, "Great, okay." A couple months go by, and I get another email telling me he's going to propose to said girl. Got a little anxious about that because I was in my cynical deployment mindset, and I was surrounded by Marines getting Dear John letters. I suspect there's a secret template for Dear John letters because they all read markedly the same way. "Dear honey, the grind of this deployment is too much. Our relationship is over. By the way, I have a new significant other already." So he was deploying right behind me to Iraq, and I thought there was really no way that his situation was going to turn out any differently, but I wanted to support him, so I said, "Good, propose marriage, do it. One favor, you buy that girl a cubic zirconia." As younger brothers often do, he ignored me, didn't take my advice. And I thought, well, that's some money he's not going to see again. I made it my business when he was flying in to be there at the hangar. And as he was walking off the C-130, I had all of these grand ideas in my mind about being able to share with him everything he needed to know to stay safe. No matter how armed or well-trained a little brother is, he looks like a kid to you. And my heart sunk as he started walking towards me. All I saw was this towering pack and big blue eyes peeking out of the Kevlar helmet. In that moment, he looked about 10. And I realized for a moment that I wasn't invincible, neither was he, and my words might not mean very much. As you do in such situations, we said our hellos and our goodbyes quickly. But I knew where his unit was headed, and I knew what was happening there. A few months later, I was headed home to the States, and I didn't know it at the time, but he was as well. Except that an improvised explosive device had made sure that his trip home was wounded and on a stretcher. Now, when a service member is medically evacuated and they finally make it home to that stateside hospital, the journey has really just begun, and his was just beginning. Our family showed up to Bethesda ready to support as needed, but there were a lot of questions and a lot of unknowns. We weren't sure what to expect. Even with our support network gathered, that hospital ward was dark some days. There was a lot of pain, a lot of morphine drips, a lot of questions. And it was into this environment that his brand new fiance walked. She was a civilian school teacher with no connection to the military or the wars. And I didn't know if she was going to want to actually become part of our family at this point. I had stereotyped her on sight, really. Probably because she was a pretty girl, the kind who had a lot of makeup and her accessories always matched her shoes. You know the kind I mean. And I was waiting for her to fall apart. She never did. I was actually terrible in the hospital room, absolutely useless, graceless. I often dropped things, and she kept my little brother laughing. She kept him smiling even after surgeries. She kept him connected to their community of friends, even when we were installing hospital rails over his bed and he needed help with the most basic tasks. She kept him talking wedding plans and building a family together when he finally got out of that bed, but he had to spend every day in a reclining chair. That makeup had fooled me, and she was more than serious. She showed up for my little brother, and she was a leaning post when it most mattered. I didn't know she had it in her. They got married, and she gained 3 sisters that day who would do absolutely anything, and I do mean anything, for her, no questions asked. She has a sharp sense of humor and unfortunately a very good memory. And I very often on Thanksgiving hear about that cubic zirconia comment. Here's the truth about human health. Nothing will kill you faster than loneliness. We know this because scientists have studied social cohesion from a variety of angles. We've looked at intimate partnerships, friendships, civic involvement, and we always find that disconnection is dangerous. One study looked at medical students who didn't have very many friends, and their immune systems were depressed, and they got sick more often. A long-term study of the inhabitants of Roseto, Pennsylvania, showed us that a tight neighborhood community can protect you against heart disease even when your diet is borderline delinquent. My own research has shown that people without partnerships are at greater risk for depression and anxiety. The reason for this is our physiology. We register isolation, discord, alienation in the exact same way that we register a physical threat. So when you're experiencing any of these things, your stress response fires off. Now, cortisol and adrenaline are incredibly useful when you need to respond to a stressor. They fire us up to respond, but they also divert energy away from everything non-essential to that response. So you may experience this, you can feel this, your heart rate increases, you breathe a little bit faster, you have blood flow to the big muscle groups in your body. But you also see energy diverted from non-essential things like immune response, digestion, upper level cognition, who needs to do calculus in that moment, even blood flow to the extremities. So it becomes a problem for us if our social health is low over a period of time, because you see these stress hormones stay chronically elevated. So maybe at first that decreased blood flow to the extremities is just cold hands. Over time that can become neuropathy, and you can have trouble picking things up or trouble balancing. Your body at that point is signaling to you loudly and in the only way it can that there's a problem. And your social numbing has manifested as physical numbing. That upper level cognition when you're stressed, often for me, I know it's happening because I can't find my car keys anywhere. Over time, that can become difficulty with complicated thinking, communicating with other people, even displaying empathy. So in that way, our isolation can become self-perpetuating. We talk in public health about something called protective effect. And increasing your level of social health has more protective effect. It does more for your longevity than dropping a smoking habit. Please don't hear me wrong, smoking is still bad. The public health professor did not just say smoking is okay. Because the military will always be home to me, I work in the military public health space today. And for a long time, what we talked about was the link between deployments and post-traumatic stress. But that's an oversimplification and not the entire story. And we know now that the riskiest period of time for a veteran is that first 6 months after leaving active duty. We face a complex mix at that point. You've got identity loss and the loss of purpose-driven work. But the biggest is the loss of our close-knit community. So when you get a veteran reintegration story where social health is where you'd want it to be, you hear a story like my little brother's. He is still everybody's favorite, and today he's a probably overly intense, I wouldn't want to be in his classroom, high school English teacher. His wife is funny and keeps us all on our toes. When social health is not where you'd want it to be, you get a reintegration story like mine, and like too many service members leaving the military today. After my own deployment and really that time at the hospital, I struggled with pulling the right people around me. I was just so angry, and I felt guilty that it wasn't me in that hospital bed. I had a lot of people around me of similar experience, and that's all I wanted. I didn't communicate well. I didn't understand the meaning of the word introspection or the phrase, I might not be doing things well. And when I left active duty, it wasn't pretty. I worked too hard, I drank too much. I found a relationship that was as volatile and crazy as I was feeling on the inside. And I didn't have anyone in my life that challenged me and the way I was doing things. The social health issues that I'm talking about today are not a veteran problem. They're something we all need to think about and prioritize. The angry veteran experiences the exact same effects as the elderly shut-in, or that woman staying in the emotionally abusive relationship. We have to make social health a priority. It has to be something in which we all invest. So, I had to ask myself eventually a hard question, and I invite you to ask yourself this question today. How are my people? Do they affirm you? We need supportive, yes. Do they hold me accountable? Do they make you think? We need different. We really need the strength that complementary personalities bring to our life and bring to our experience. Nobody grows inside their own comfort zone. So be willing to get a little uncomfortable as you connect. It can radically change your health. Thank you.